Hey friends, welcome back to Notes to My Nervous System, a podcast about understanding your nervous system so you can move through hard moments with a little more calm and a lot less self-blame. I'm Erin, a mom, therapist, and creator of the Mind Circuit app. It's a simple nervous system friendly tool for moments when your body needs support before your brain can catch up.
You're thinking, if you're here right now with us and you want to write these down, write them down and ask them of yourself. What are things you like to do? What are your strengths? What do other people say that you're gifted at or you're good at? Have a list. Now look at that list and circle all the things that you enjoy doing.
Hi friends, welcome to Notes to My Nervous System. Today, Shira is joining us again. She is a career coach who understands what it's like to be stressed and lost in a career that no longer fits. She is a former civil rights lawyer who successfully transitioned to coaching. She specializes in helping individuals move from feeling overwhelmed to achieving career satisfaction and balance. She has also worked with organizations leveraging her 15-year plus time in nonprofit and government work to help leaders create healthy, insightful, vision-driven work environments. I'm excited. She is ready to help us strategize for what's next in our lives. And today we welcome her to Notes to My Nervous System. Thank you so much for joining us today. And my viewers know I just jump on in because time is precious. You have such an interesting background, going from a civil rights lawyer to now helping others and coaching them and understanding what it is that makes them enjoy their career. And if not, how to make that change. So I'd be interested to know, what are the things that people should be aware of, looking for? What would get that conversation or that thought even going for someone?
About kind of when they're feeling stuck, what to do next.
Yes. And how do you notice if you feel stuck? Because I don't know you, but sometimes people don't even realize that's what they're feeling.
Okay, that is such a good question. So, agreed. I think oftentimes people might not be aware that what they're feeling is a stuck feeling in work. And what that can oftentimes look like, and what I have people come to me feeling, is a lack of confidence, a lack of motivation, a lack of feeling connected to who they are, to their values, to their core self. Oftentimes I have people coming to me, and this is so resonant because when I was practicing law, I felt really removed from the things I loved. I loved art. I hadn't done art in so many years.
Oh,
I loved working out. Was just having a hard time even making the time to work out regularly, let alone frequently. And so, kind of figuring out when you are feeling disconnected from the things you love can be a real indicator something is off. And then really kind of stopping to think about, if I'm not feeling motivated, if I'm not feeling confident at work, and if I'm not connected with where I am, what's going on in my life? And kind of taking a pause there to evaluate, where is the disconnect? Perhaps it is somewhere outside of work.
mhm.
It'll be in work, and that might be kind of a helpful exercise to check in.
But how do you start the process? Because I know that a lot of times people, they're scared to make that change. You know, they've devoted so much time to the one career, or the narrative of who they are is tied to this career. And so they've already talked themselves out of thinking of making a change.
Oh my God. Yes. Okay. So you're saying once you realize you're stuck, now what?
Mhm.
Okay, so I think that you're right. Most of the people who come to me do feel, and I certainly felt like this as a lawyer. Okay, where I'm at now is good enough, or I've given so much money and time and energy to my degree, or to this
Mhm.
experience, or to this profession. What would it mean to leave it? Or for me as a civil rights lawyer, if I'm not a civil rights lawyer anymore, who am I? And that has felt scary. And even if you are confident that, okay, I'm in the wrong field right now, this isn't right, usually what stops people is, okay, what else do I do? Like, I have that's certainly how I thought. I have no idea what else is out there. I have no idea what else I can do. And that enough is to keep you stuck.
Absolutely.
Okay. So the first step I would say is really just sitting down and thinking about, what do I like about my work right now? And what am I missing? Oftentimes, these are thoughts that are circulating throughout our brains that are constant, but we don't take time to really articulate it. And it can be really clarifying to sit down and kind of get clear on, what do I like? What am I missing? What do I need more of? And that little baby exercise alone can be helpful, at least in starting the unsticking process.
Now, what made you have that aha moment? This isn't working. What made you, 15 years as a civil rights lawyer?
It was,
Ooh, please share.
yeah. Okay, well, to be fair, it was a little bit less. It was like a little under 10, but around 10 years. But it was still a really long time. And I spent so much time um, focusing on this even prior to becoming a lawyer, knowing that this was something I knew I wanted to do. And I had hit the goal. I was doing the work that meant so much to me as a 20-year-old, and I'm finally doing it. And it's such a good question of, when did I really realize how stuck I was and needed to get out? And I'll tell you, it was on maternity leave with one of my kids. I realized I am dreading going back to work. I don't want to go in. And I don't think that's how I'm supposed to go through the rest of my life.
Yeah.
And it was such a scary realization, because I'd spent so much time as a lawyer, so much time committed to this, and had no plans for what to do if this wasn't the path I was going to take. It was a really scary realization. And so I hired a career coach.
Smart.
Yeah. I talked to a friend, and she said, this is somebody I use. She's amazing, but it's a lot of work. And that was true. You really have to be able to commit to it. But that was just felt like movement towards unsticking. I needed to just talk to somebody to acknowledge out loud, I'm not happy. I would need to do something else. And I wasn't telling myself I'm leaving the practice of law. I just knew I needed some help figuring out how to feel happy again.
So somebody who was challenging you, asking those questions that you hadn't asked yourself yet.
Yes, or I didn't even know how to ask or what to ask. Because the first question that I think is enough to stop you in your tracks is, well, what do I do then? And that's an impossible place to start. It's where everybody wants to start, but there's so much that has to happen before.
Yeah, that's like the end question after
Yes.
go through all these like other steps, but people don't get that.
No, and that's what everyone wants. Everyone feels a sense of urgency. I know I did.
Fast forward.
Right. Like, just tell me what to do. And they want me to give them the unicorn answer with this unicorn dream job that they hadn't thought of. Right. And it's exactly what I was searching for. So it's very resonant. And to your exact point, that's our last step. There's a lot of work that happens before.
Because you are replicating all the work they did to get to this career. All that time in high school, in college, exploring, asking questions, being exposed to different areas. You can't
and
a week.
Right. And to be honest, it's actually a really different experience than even what you did in kind of thinking about what you wanted to do when you grew up. Because at this point now, most people I'm working with are in their 30s, 40s, maybe some late 20s, maybe some 50s, but mainly it's concentrated in 30s and 40s. And your life at this point looks so different than it did when you were young. So it's a re-envisioning, and it's a re-understanding and a reconnecting with yourself. Because now, where do you find joy? And what do you kind of fall into that flow state, that state where you lose track of time? What are you doing when you're in that flow state? What are your values? What do you care about? What are your strengths and your gifts that other people are acknowledging? So it's those questions that kind of make you who you are, and this point in your life can be so illuminating. And rarely do we stop and take the time to ask ourselves those. Even if you're in therapy, that's usually not where the conversation goes. It's usually,
I don't do a
no.
lot of career therapy. And when people go down that road, I'm more than happy to go with them, but it's not my expertise. So I would refer out.
Yeah. So this is where we're really digging into who are we now? What I say this is why I love coaching, because I sit in the best parts of humanity. I tell people this is not the place to be humble. Tell me all the wonderful parts about you. And I ask them all these questions to pull it out. And it's beautiful and it's so fun. And I say my gift as a coach and as a person, something that I was gifted with that I feel very unabashedly confident saying is I can see people's gifts so well. It is so easy for me to just like see the strengths people have and to pull them out. And
you're a very good coach.
It does, because I can reflect it back. And oftentimes that's the part of people that they've forgotten or they don't feel confident about anymore. And once you can start reconnecting with who you are at your core, what makes you you, it makes it a lot easier to start thinking about what will fill you up as a career.
No, that makes perfect sense. But I have to imagine, I mean, from a therapy side, asking somebody about their values or what they enjoy or, where the flow is. I mean, it's like that internal, like all of a sudden slam on the brakes because we're not supposed to think that way about ourselves or talk that way about ourselves. So what are things that you've done or suggestions that you have for people who are trying to ask those questions of themselves and they find themselves kind of like stuttering in their head, like, I don't know what my value is. Be nice. Peace on earth.
Oh my God. Yeah. I can't really say to someone, what's your value? It doesn't work. You're right. Like it's hard. That's hard to come up with. So we do, I have lots of exercises. So for example, one of my favorites, and maybe I can do a little with you to give an example.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Describe a peak moment in your life, a time that you felt especially poignant or rewarded. What's something that comes up and just take me to that moment?
I would say when I did some training with EMDR, and we, as therapists, we had to be guinea pigs for each other. I was able to help a fellow therapist actually move through a trauma event in a way that I've not experienced before. And it was so cool to be able to use therapy and your somatic and brain, body, everything, and then to be able to ask the questions that they didn't get asked and help them feel safer in their nervous system.
So I'm writing down what I'm hearing. And I'm curious when you're talking about that moment when you're able to put this all together and really help somebody, what are the values for you that you were honoring then?
That they felt safe with me, that I knew I was helping someone feel better,
Yeah.
that I had an impact,
Yeah.
and I could see it, which was cool. Because as a therapist, you don't always get to see that, and you really don't. But with that moment with EMDR, I actually got to see like that happy, ending, and that was so rewarding.
Okay. So can I say back to the values that I'm just pulling out of?
Please.
Okay. Creativity, safety, helping others, service, feeling valued, having an impact, seeing results, feeling rewarded, accomplishment, confidence.
Spot on. You're good.
And those are some values. You could have given me a whole other situation, something maybe connected to, I don't know what, your family or a vacation you took, and the values would look different.
Oh,
And so
absolutely.
yeah, it's really interesting. So what I do with people is usually kind of pull the values that are most resonant from that. So I'm curious, which one is sticking with you right now?
The creativity actually, because it's it's not something people really think about within therapy, but there
Mhm.
is a huge piece of it, and there's an art side of it that I don't think that is always acknowledged.
Oh, yeah. That makes so much sense to me as you're saying that. I can really appreciate how it's not really necessarily acknowledged. And when you were describing as the first word I thought of, is like combining all these different things to
Mhm.
problem solve.
Yeah, it's like an artist putting together a picture sometimes.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Yeah. So that's the work kind of, it's a little glimpse into the work we would do. And I have a bunch of other exercises similar where we
Thank
sit
you
in
for
those
sharing. That was
values.
great.
Thank you for engaging and leaning in. You are amazing. And I love
Okay.
that story. What an incredible gift to that person that you were able to bring by being you and by being that creative, confident person that you are.
It was nice to feel confident in the moment as a therapist, knowing that we were going down the right path. That's a good place to be in as any person, being
Oh
able
my
to feel that confidence in the moment when you're doing what you enjoy doing.
Yes. And I think that you're actually hitting on something so important that I do with my clients, which is, for example, I will actually, if we were working together and you were missing confidence in your career right now, oftentimes almost every single person who comes to me says that they were seeking clarity and confidence. They're seeking maybe a new career or maybe leveling up, but they're lacking clarity and confidence. And those are core to them figuring out what comes next. So there's every person I've ever talked to has felt confident at a time. So what we do, which is kind of it's interesting and it's powerful, is we lean into the time that they were confident. We think about what it was like, what were the variables that were there, and we really sit in that version of themselves and almost kind of like I just did this exercise at a workshop where I'm like, imagine that you are Beyonce has a Sasha Fierce stage presence. We're going to develop your own stage presence, your own Sasha
Oh,
Fierce.
like that.
And so we do that with confidence or leadership, and you sit in that part of you. And it's kind of sounds out there, but it's a really powerful
No,
tool.
I think it's great. It's a good way to tell the person to give themselves permission
Oh,
to be this version of themselves that they know they can be. But for whatever reason, they don't.
yes, yes, exactly that.
Yes.
Okay.
Awesome. Thank you for that.
Of
Um,
course.
what's going on with like the disconnect that you're seeing with people when it comes to their authentic selves, and why you see that happening quite a lot within careers where people have this narrative and they start, and then all of a sudden it's not really who they are anymore, or they get away from who they are.
Oh my God, such a good question. I'll speak to my own experience and then I think it really does usually translate pretty well to other people when I'm explaining this. But basically, I decided to be a lawyer when I was in my early 20s. I knew the impact I wanted to have. I wanted to work with the most vulnerable kids and I wanted to focus on education and I knew the impact I wanted to have.
Mhm.
Fast forward 15 years and okay, I'm having the impact I wanted to have. I'm doing the thing I wanted to do in my early 20s. And I tell people to envision basically that my professional life was in a silo and I had a bunch of buckets that are important to me in my professional life. And one bucket is meaningful work. And that bucket in my mid 30s now is overflowing. It's very meaningful work. But I have all these other buckets that are totally empty, like
Oh,
connection, creativity,
mhm.
confidence, flexibility, autonomy, rapport. Oh my God, like the list goes on. And in my
Right.
early 20s, I didn't really know how important those buckets were. And I didn't really think about that. I thought that that meaningful bucket, which was full, would overflow enough to fill up my whole silo, and that's all I needed. And now, kind of as a more developed adult with a lot more happening in my life, I'm
Mm.
realizing, it took me a long time to realize that only through coaching, there's all these other buckets. And what are those buckets? And how do I fill those up? And what needs to be full? What doesn't need to necessarily be all the way full? So I
Well,
think
these
that's
are
one huge thing.
conversations that we have, and we don't teach people how to think about their careers in a way that's helpful.
So true. So true. And I'll say it's hard to know. We have lots of skill sets and we can learn new skills.
Mm-hmm.
Being good at something doesn't mean you enjoy it. Learning to be good. As a lawyer, I was a good lawyer. I did not like the skills that I was leveraging. I really wanted to spend my days doing this, just talking to you in a lovely conversation. That did not look like my experience as a lawyer, but I was good at it. And so that is confusing because which skill set do you leverage and how do you know how to leverage one if you've never really had any experience leveraging the skill set that brings you flow or joy or energy? And also, most people come to me saying, I don't even know what I'm good at.
That's
I
so
don't
sad.
even. Yeah. So it's really figuring out what are your strengths? You have strengths. What are they? And then
Right.
we do a lot of work around figuring that out and where they find joy in those strengths.
Where do you think, because I'm a fellow parent,
Mhm.
um, how could a parent help their kiddo, a teenager, college, going to college, in college, start to think in a way that would benefit them?
Oh my God. No one's ever asked me that. I love that question. Let's think about it together. I think really having a strong sense
You
of
could
self.
create a course all around just helping us parents.
Oh my God. Yeah, I'll give it to myself. Um, I think having a really strong sense of self is really important. Knowing your values, taking the time this will benefit you whether or not it serves you in figuring out your job, but knowing your values and articulating that as an 18, 19, 20 year old, that's important. That's important. A stop and a pause on kind of what do I really care about and to think about that is important.
So, as a
I
parent or guardian, having these conversations, introducing the question or idea of it.
Yes, and even thinking about like what do you enjoy doing? What brings you flow? Like that flow state. I don't know if your listeners are familiar, but it's that state where you lose track of time
Oh,
because
I
you're
love
doing
flow.
something. Oh, I love it. This is flow. I'm having it. And it is
When I take a moment and I remind myself to look for the flow, my life moves so much easier. And then all of a sudden I'll get into those moments where I'm trying to push this and that's not working, this is blowing up. But if I take a step back and remind myself, okay, it's not flowing for a reason, so maybe I should stop and wait. Again, things get so much easier.
Yes, yes, yes. That feeling of flow and understanding what brings you there. When do things move easily? It's basically the idea is it's something that's challenging, but not too challenging. And that brings you joy and is leveraging a more natural skill set. You have that in high school, even middle school. My kids have that right now in their elementary age and younger. I know kind of a sense of what brings them into flow. So if we're able to have those conversations with our young adults, how important for them to start getting a sense of where do I naturally fall into that flow state? What brings me there? That's a really telling indicator. And I would say explore as much as you can in college around where your interests are. Maybe touch as much as you can, whether it's in groups, off campus events, classes, extracurriculars, whatever it may be. I know I did the exact opposite. I touched on some of the things that really interested me, but then I was like, I do really well in psychology, which is telling, but that's where I was getting A's and I wanted to have a good GPA. So it's pretty much how I kind of committed my time. And there's so much else. If I could go back, if I could do it over again, I would go back to college in a heartbeat and just take a million classes.
I graduated high school early. I graduated with my bachelor's early. I was doing 21 credit hours. I don't know why the hell I was in such a rush.
Oh my God, right? Right? You would go back to college with me?
Sure. Somebody paid for it.
I know. Well, when I'm retired, I'm just like planning on auditing stuff. And there's free classes now on Stanford also.
Just that she audits and she'll take some free like life learner senior class, and it's so interesting because I would never have thought of that.
Oh, isn't that? It's just such a gift to be able to do that
It
and to
is.
keep
Learn just
learning.
to enjoy learning.
Totally.
It's such a
Totally.
privilege, and it really should be taken advantage of.
Yeah. Yeah. So I say, give those 20 some odd year olds the permission to spend some time so that they're not saying, when I'm 65, I want to go back and learn. Like, really embrace what college has to offer. I don't think I spent enough time kind of really taking advantage of everything, all the classes and the people and the groups that I could have. And I think that's a really unique time to be able to do that.
Well, I think that's a valuable piece and something to instill in parents and guardians, because we're more thinking about, well, what are you going to major in? What's this? What's that? What's next? And we're not really asking what they're enjoying.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and it's important to have both of those to think about, to come up with a plan. But if the plan also, I think one thing as you're saying that is, this wasn't my experience, but many people have parents who really create the plan for them and say, well, I know that you'll have a state, all they want is their kid to be safe and stable. You'll have a stable job if you go into finance. You'll have security if you go into computer science. But we know that if you go into that for somebody else that's not you, that really might be wrong. And then you wind up
Yeah.
where I was. And then you wind up talking to me in your 30s and 40s. So I think it's really also talking to your kids and giving them space to explore and to figure it out for themselves too.
How would you describe flow if you're trying to explain it to a teenager, to a high schooler, middle school? Because I get it, you get it, and I'm sure some of my listeners get it, or they're Googling right now, which is what I always do when I listen to different podcasts.
Yeah.
But how can we translate that for like a high schooler to have a better sense of what it is they're looking for?
Okay. This is what I would say. So this is how I would almost kind of narrow it down. What are things that you like to do? What are things you like to do? What are things that are your natural strengths that you're good at doing? What do other do? I would ask all these questions. So for your listeners, if you're thinking, if you're here right now with us and you want to write these down, write them down and ask them of yourself. What are things you like to do? What are your strengths? What do other people say that you're gifted at or you're good at? Have a list. Now look at that list and circle all the things that you enjoy doing. So some of those things you might not enjoy, right? Or very much enjoy. What are the things you most enjoy? And then when you're thinking about that list, so now you're looking at joy plus gift. When do you lose track of time when you're doing it?
Oh, so even narrow.
Yeah. Get even, and then you could have one or two things. It might not be very much. Some people might be art, or music, my daughter's reading, my son basketball, movement, another daughter's Legos. I can already kind of start seeing, and those will shift probably with time, maybe not. I don't know. For me, it's reading. So that has always been a core part of kind of who I am in my flow. And I've always loved chatting. So anyways, I think that those could be really helpful questions for a kid to just start getting a sense of, what does it mean to like something, to kind of have a natural inclination to it, and then to really fall deeply into it. And it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be your profession. People might do that with horseback riding, who might not become equestrian.
It could be your passion.
100%. But even having a sense of those things that give you a break, there's something that's very core to you with those, even knowing what those are and making sure you always have those as a kind of touch point in your life can be important. Because like I said, oftentimes people get to me when they're super stuck and they've stopped touch pointing those things that make them, that are the flow state for them, which can just even further kind of deplete that sense of self.
It's so important to have these conversations. You spend so much time at your job, in your career. You don't want to spend it miserable.
No, you don't want to spend it miserable. And I think what becomes, I would say maybe like the two most tricky things are, people are so worried about money and flexibility. And they're usually in a job that offers either a lot of one or the other, a good mix of both, that it feels scary to leave. And so even if you're feeling all the things that we've talked about, miserable, when you have a family, like so many of my clients do, or even not, even if you're just supporting yourself, that stability is so core. So what I say to
everybody's got bills, so it is hard to make that decision.
yes. And what I want to say here is it's breaking everything down into baby steps, because basically I use a lot of neuroscience in my work. The idea of breaking out of your status quo is terrifying for all humans. That's for most, let's say. That is a naturally terrifying thing. And when you start thinking about leaving that stability, leaving the flexibility or the stable income, that's X amount of money that makes you feel safe and secure. Oh my God, that's terrifying. Stop. If you think about just having one conversation with someone about possibilities or maybe an opportunity or like a next step, a lot less scary. So oftentimes people get to me at the point when they feel so stuck and have been so stuck and so scared of leaving, but they're at a point where they really know that they're at a breaking point and are going to maybe like quit because of their unhappiness, or they're just not, they don't feel like themselves anymore. And now we say, let's not worry about down the line 6 months of what's next. Let's just take one baby step today. And usually those first conversations are getting one step towards just starting to talk about what else is out there, or what potentially could be kind of your next possible exploration area. And it's really about kind of reconnecting them with themselves and then remembering, oh, I have been confident, or, oh, I know that flow state and I haven't done that XYZ flow state activity in a long time.
See, this is why I like coaching. I don't think therapy and coaching should ever be at odds, because we work in different arenas and we can
Yes.
and build upon each other. I think anything within wellness and mental health, there is no reason for us not to come together and work together, because I'm past shit and you're working on the here and now. It's great.
Yes. It's so a lot of my clients are referred from their therapists. And I refer plenty of people to therapists because it is really different work. And I say to my clients, many of them, you also should keep your therapist when we're working together. To your exact point, we are working on very different things.
Absolutely.
And maybe it's a good opportunity. So most people come to me and they're like, okay, this feels very cathartic, but how is this different from therapy? So maybe I can explain a little bit of how this is. Yeah, this is what I say to people when they come to me. So I say, you have come to me with so much context. That context for why you're here, that's your story. And it is so important. And that is the space that you really spend time in therapy, understanding the past to inform who you are and how you got this way and why you are the way you are. It helps inform your sense of self. And that is so important. Okay. Now, as a therapist, is that right? Right now. Okay, great. Perfect. I'm on the right track. Okay. So that's how I kind of explain that. And I say, okay, now the difference with me is I'm very goal focused. I don't need more than 10% of the context, your story. I need just about that. And then what I really want to understand is what you're holding on to from that context. What's important to you about it? What's the bottom line for it? Because I want you to understand where you are right now. Because if you understand where you are right now, how that context is still impacting you, then we can start creating a pathway towards that future goal. And I give this metaphor of a map, maybe in a mall or an airport, where it's the you are here red dot and you're trying to get to the cafe. Well, you don't really need to understand how you got to that red dot to help figure out how to go to the cafe. You just need to understand where that red dot is. And then you chart your path. And as you keep going, you need to still know where that red dot is. So you keep exploring where I am right now and stay really present and keep that future cafe in mind, keep that vision in mind. And that's kind of a solid metaphor for what coaching with me looks like. And the difference.
Yeah, there is definitely a difference. I'm coming from more of, especially since my expertise is with trauma and understanding the nervous system and trying to calm the nervous system through bilateral stimulation and all that jazz. it's healing the past so you can be here and now making better decisions. But then I get to have a happy goodbye. And so, okay, who are you going to work with to figure out the better decisions moving forward? Now,
Now
our
that you
therapist can help you with that, don't get me wrong, but it's just not generally like what we're in the thick of it for, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And I'll say one thing that's really different about our work is also if you stumbled upon trauma in kind of talking, which I do plenty, I don't dig into it. I say, I know how to support them in my capacity, especially if they have a therapist elsewhere. That's very helpful. But that isn't something that we sit in because it's not my job and I'm not trained in it. You are. And so what I do is we don't kind of fall into the going, now we're going to be talking about our trauma instead of thinking about our goal. We stay goal
You
focused.
stay with the goal. Where I don't get to stay with the goal. I stay in the trauma, but that's what I do. So
That's what you do. Exactly. And both, I think, what is confusing for my clients is that like, this is very therapeutic or cathartic. And it is. It just feels, yes, very much so. And therapy is really important too.
They're both important and they
Yeah.
can share space and be in the same world.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you so much. This has been so
Erin,
fun.
thank you for having me. This has been such a treat. I feel so lucky to have been able to spend this time with you.
Oh, well, I appreciate it. My listeners have gained so much knowledge. Please come back, reach out, let us know.
Love to.
Something great.
Thanks, Erin.
Thank you for listening and joining Notes to My Nervous System. If this spoke to you, please leave a review and subscribe. Unless you're giving me a negative review, then keep that to yourself. If listening stirred anything up and you don't want to sit in it, Mind Circuit is a regulation app designed for moments just like this. It's not therapy. It's just a short guided reset you can use before sleep, after stress, or when your thoughts just won't slow down. But in the meantime, if it feels okay, let's do a quick little reset. Take a deep breath and let your eyes gently track left, right, left, right. You don't need to change your breath. Just let it happen. If your mind wandered, that's fine. If it didn't, that's fine too. We're just going to pause here and take one slow deep breath in and out. And again, let your eyes gently track left to right, back and forth. Left, right, left, right. And now you can come back to whatever's next in your life. And as always, please be kind to your own wiring.